Okay, so this video is going to be on modules. And why do you care about modules? Well, if you're not familiar with them, modules are Ruby's way of letting you have multiple inheritance, sort of. Um, Ruby only supports single inheritance, so a class can only inherit from one other class, as opposed to something like C++, which allows for multiple parents. But that being said, mixins are actually sort of the best of both worlds, and here's why. Let's get into it. And vi modules.rb. Hopefully there's no conflict here, but so let's say we have two classes, right? I'm actually going to use an example from the financial industry, which hopefully that doesn't scare too many people away or make you too bored. But think of like an example where you have first you have a class called loan, and then you have a class called bond. Now, what is interesting about that is you can say they do have some similar features, right? So a loan would have like a balance owed, right? So we'll say this is an attribute accessor balance owed, and to be honest, a bond sort of in a sense has the same thing, right? There's still money left to be paid on that bond. So already we've duplicated some code between these guys, but that's okay. I mean, let's also say though that they have a maturity date. Maturity date, the date that the money becomes owed or has to be completely paid off by. Maturity date. Okay. And let's just say that, all truthfulness, we say def in our case, let's just say maturity date is actually months left. So if we say, let's say owed by month, so we'll calculate how much is owed by how many months we have left. So we'll say balance owed divided by maturity date. And then we'll find out, like, if we had a balance of 5,000, divide that by 20 for the maturity date, and you'll end up getting, well, I can't do the math in my head because I'm way too tired, but you get the general idea. Now the thing is like this code totally applies to the stuff that's below, right? So you know the right thing to do: copy and paste, right? We'll just copy and paste that code and put it right there. Well, that's not very good. It violates a very important programming rule called don't repeat yourself. And don't repeat yourself just saves you from duplicating the code in multiple places, because when you do that, you change things in one place and you have to change them in the other, and then you forget one place. You forget to change it one place, and then it's broken, and then you don't know why. And it's generally a lot better to do everything in one place if humanly possible. So this basically created a very ugly situation for us. So what we're going to do to fix this whole situation is create, well, before we do that, I guess we'll actually make sure that this works, right? So puts, well, I guess we'll create a loan.load, loan.new, and loan equals loan.new. Then we'll say loan.balance owed equals 5,000, and maturity date equals 5 for months, because obviously, like I said, did not get that. I put maturity date is going to be months basically. So bond, we'll say bond equals bond.new, and then bond.balance owed equals 200, and bond.maturity date equals let's just say 10. Okay, so that's simple enough. So then you can say puts, because we're going to put it to the screen, loan dot owed by month, and puts, we'll just put like a little separator here. I like to do that. Puts bond dot owed by month. So let's exit out, run it in Ruby modules.rb. So there we go. We've got 1,020. So going back into our code, we can see, yes, $5,000 divided by 5 months is $1,000 a month, and $200 owed over a period of 10 months is $20 a month. So it's exactly what we expected. But now, like I said, the problem is this code is pretty ugly. So what we'll do is create a module, and we'll call it, what do you say, loanable. I can't really come up with anything better than that off the top of my head. So we'll say, now, here's what's so awesome, is that you can say, well, let's just stuff this code up here, copy it there, and tell you what, we'll get rid of it there, and we'll get rid of it here, and then we'll say include loanable. And like, loanable's a terrible name. It should really be something that is much more general, like owable. That would probably make more sense. But this should work for now. Now we'll exit out of there and try the same thing again. And there you go. You've saved some code, and you've made your code dry. It doesn't repeat itself. And now the two elements, you know, they're free to completely add their own fields, add other things that are necessary for it. So loan may have accessor for something totally different, right? It's something that doesn't really apply to a bond, like amount paid. A loan would have that, whereas a bond probably wouldn't, not in the same sense anyway. So that's typically what you want to do. Like, a lot of things in Rails really benefit from a refactor, where you go and you take the code that you've got and you pull out things that are common into modules. And so that's pretty much the way, at least I'd say that's a lot of how you create clean code in Ruby. And really, you know, if you're used to something like Java or one of these other languages, it's really hard to do things like that there, because the structure ends up getting very rigid and it's not really malleable in the way you need it. So definitely this is another one. Play around with this and see how it works. So this is part 1, and in part 2 we'll get into why modules are relevant for like name spacing and things like that, which is also very important.